For more on this week's stories and valuable links to related sites, be sure to log on to CNN.com.
From that moment on, his thoughts became slower, his speech became slower, he deliberated more, he hesitated more when he spoke. He lost his quickness. And for the rest of the presidency, it was a very, very slow and steady mental and physical decline.
It took Reagan out of most of the routine of being president. In a sense, it aborted the inner life of the presidency, put the Reagan presidency on this track where Reagan was more distanced than he should have been from decision-making.
Less engaged with his job.
In the first term, we had Baker and Deaver and Meese and Clark. They would bring things to the president, and they would fully engage in the discussion and the dialogue with him. Don Regan had a tendency to keep staff away from the president and basically have staff brief him, and he would go into the president himself.
As time went on, I sensed a discomfort in him. I knew that he was coming upstairs quieter at night, where he used to come up with great stories about some decision that had been made and who was arguing what. Now it was all just kind of quiet. And we'd have to draw out of him, kind of what happened during the day. And there was just a kind of sadness about it. I mean, Ronald Reagan did not understand.
Way of tracking how much a president is doing is looking at the papers that come through his hands and seeing how much they engage his attention. And in the first years of Reagan's presidency, he's constantly checking these points off, writing comments, thinking about them. But as the years proceed, you can see he's less and less interested. They just become check marks, check marks, check marks. He was saving his faculties, as old men do, for the really important vital events.
On memory, the president said his once excellent memory had been degraded, and to some extent, the prosecutors were to blame.
I have been blessed and advantaged in my life with a good memory. I have been shocked, and so have members of my family and friends of mine, at how many things that I have forgotten in the last 6 years. But I think because of the pressure and the pace and the volume of events in the president's life, compounded by the pressure of your 4-year inquiry, and all the other things that have happened, I'm amazed. There are lots of times when I literally can't remember last week.
And when it comes...
And in the first months, the first year or so, it was kind of bracing to have such difficult questions, one right after another, as many as 10 or 12 really hard ones per day. You have to kind of build up to that. It's not something that you encounter in any other job there is. The issues that reach the president's desk are the ones that nobody else has been able to resolve, because the equities are so carefully balanced, or the passions on both sides are so intense. And so by the time they get to the Oval Office, all the easy ones have been weeded out.
And therefore they will be
by 1990.
In March, President Lyndon Johnson has said he will speak to the nation on Sunday night. He plans to announce he is willing, once again, to stop bombing North Vietnam as an incentive to peace. It is not all he will announce. Later, Johnson would say that doing what's right isn't the problem. It's knowing what's right.
Sitting here resting my bones, and this loneliness won't leave me alone.
In late March of '68, Lyndon Johnson was looking for assurance and finding doubt. His approval rating in the Gallup poll had fallen to its lowest ebb. The war had put many of his plans for the Great Society on hold. And trusted old allies like Martin Luther King told him he was wrong.
I have become deeply disenchanted with President Johnson. I feel that he is so emotionally involved in the war in Vietnam and so concerned about saving face more than achieving peace.
Johnson was exhausted. Secretary of State Dean Rusk.
Except for the men and women who carried the battle out there and their families, no one in this country agonized over Vietnam more than did Lyndon Johnson. We could never...
Shall not seek, and I will not accept the nomination of my party for another term as your president.
The Johnson presidency. In a way, it has become another casualty of Vietnam. Later, in his memoir,
At first I thought, oh, I'm dreaming. Oh my God, this can't be. This doesn't happen. I looked up and the first thing I thought was, my God, that plane is flying so low. In a big city with these tall buildings, what's it doing so low?
At home, Mr. Bush also continued to play his role as the public focus for the nation's response to the terror, leaving the White House this afternoon with the First Lady for a Washington area hospital to visit burn victims from the Pentagon and their families. And earlier, in the question and answer session with reporters, displaying the raw emotions so many of his fellow citizens feel.
I'm a loving guy. And I'm also someone, however, who's got a job to do. And I intend to do it. And this is a terrible moment. But this country will not relent until we have saved ourselves and others from the terrible tragedy that came upon America.
And Peter,
it looks like once again we are leading the operation. We are carrying most of the weight.
Steve, that's always the case. That's always the case. America leads. We are the indispensable nation. We have capacity no one else has. Our military is the best in the history of the world. And when trouble comes up anywhere in the world, they don't call Beijing, they don't call Moscow, they call us. That's the deal.
I mean, it looks like we are doing 90%.
Steve, there is not an issue. When there's a typhoon in the Philippines, take a look at who's helping the Philippines deal with that situation. When there's an earthquake in Haiti, take a look at who's leading the charge, making sure Haiti can rebuild. That's how we go. That's how we roll. And that's what makes this America.
But you